Donald Trump's entire legal strategy in 4 words. We want delays, obviously. Those exact comments were made last Thursday outside a New York City courthouse right before the judge in the Manhattan DA's hush money case ruled the former president's attempts to dismiss the case were denied, and a March 25th trial date was set. But they could have happened outside a myriad of courthouses, since the former president is currently embroiled in several cases. His approach is the same: delay, delay, delay. The more Trump prolongs the pretrial periods in each, the better chance he has of pushing the trials past the November election, where he views a win as an escape from accountability. We're seeing his delay tactic play out before our eyes with the federal election interference case, where Trump's appeal to the United States Supreme Court over claims of presidential immunity has put the case in limbo. The Guardian reports, quote, there are several options available to the court that could affect a trial date: refuse to hear the case and send it back to Judge Chutkan with immediate effect, hear the case and issue a ruling expeditiously, or hear the case and issue a ruling late in the summer. Complicating matters, Chutkan isn't expected to schedule a trial immediately, even if the court denies the immunity claim and sends the case back to her, because Trump is technically entitled to the defense preparation time that elapsed since he first started appealing the immunity issue. So, once Judge Chutkan does schedule the trial, how long will this all take? The Guardian adds, the trial might take around 100 days. If voters wanted to go to the ballot box knowing whether Trump was guilty of conspiring to stop the peaceful transfer of power after losing the 2020 election, a trial would need to have started before the last week of July. The argument for urgency was stressed in Jack Smith's ruling last week, asking the Supreme Court to reject Trump's appeal. The special counsel wrote, delay in the resolution of these charges threatens to frustrate the public interest in a speedy and fair verdict, a compelling interest in every criminal case and one that has unique national importance here. All while the timing of other cases involving the ex-president are also in question. Classified documents trial out of Florida is expected to get pushed back from its scheduled May date. A trial for the racketeering case in Georgia has still not been set. And the Supreme Court has yet to rule on the 14th Amendment challenge to Trump's ballot eligibility. A full smorgasbord of legal issues, all with the political clock ticking. And that is where we start this hour with Jordan Rubin, our very own Deadline legal blog writer and former prosecutor for the Manhattan District Attorney's Office. Plus, here at the table, Democratic strategist and director of the Public Policy Program at Hunter College, Basil Smikle. MSNBC legal correspondent Lisa Rubin is back with us. Lisa, talk to me about this strategy, right? It's well documented at this point. Delay, delay, delay. Where is it working for him and where is it not?
Well, it's certainly not working, for example, in the New York DA's case, right, where Judge Merchan has already disposed of his pretrial motions, set a trial date that's firm for March 25th. And even though last week Trump's lawyers tried to move that, that's where the interplay of the cases gets sort of complicated but also interesting.
Yes.
Because Todd Blanche made an interesting argument. He said, Your Honor, between March 1st and March 25th, there are 42 caucuses and primaries. And, you know, I sat there thinking, well, yeah, that feels a little bit unfair if this guy's going to be a major party nominee. But then the guy from the DA's office stood up and said, but you yourself proposed that March 25th date. You said that would minimize disruption. Here's the email where you said that to me last year. Also, earlier this week, you told Judge Cannon that we don't assume that May 20th date is fixed, even though you just told that guy over there, meaning Judge Merchan, that it was. So you should, one of the reasons I think it's really interesting that it's not succeeding is because the lawyers in each of these cases are very closely watching the others. It's easy for the folks in the special counsel's office to track the ways that Trump's 2 teams of lawyers in the 2 federal cases might be making misrepresentations, because there are folks who are involved in both of those cases. But the DA's office has to keep a tight watch on what they say in those other cases, as do the people in Fani Willis's team, who might be a little bit distracted right now. Certainly it's working for right now in the federal election interference case. But let's give it a couple of days. We might have an answer from the court.
Right, Jordan, we definitely have seen the cross-pollination of those cases, if you will. I want you to sort of pull back the curtain for those of us who are not attorneys. During these pretrial periods, when things are paused, what exactly happens? Is anything able to get done? Can either side gather evidence, speak to witnesses? What are they doing right now?
Right. So in the federal election interference case, the answer is really nothing that can be done in terms of actually moving the case towards trial or imposing what are called litigation burdens on the defense. And so that's why we're basically stuck in place while we're waiting on the Supreme Court to see what it does. So on its own, the prosecution could presumably do what it wants. But again, it can't do anything that actually puts a burden on Trump. That's why we saw the whole to-do when Jack Smith filed a pretrial motion and served discovery on the defense. Trump then had a huge complaint about that. So that's really the only actual litigation that's been had at the trial court level, is litigation over whether there can be litigation. So that's really why we're waiting on the Supreme Court right now, as to the federal election interference case, at least.
Litigation over whether there can be litigation. Basil Smaglo, that gets to one of my core concerns here, which is just fatigue on the part of voters, that there are all these cases swirling, that there's not a sense that there is momentum moving forward, that some of it seems very technocratic, and that what is at stake and the things he is accused of, not simply as questions of things that happen retrospectively, but things that could be prospective, that could be on the horizon, the people lose focus.
Well, that is part of the strategy, right? If as long as it gets delayed, and we have a lot of the litigation to see if we need litigation kind of conversations, that's where voters start to check out and say, you know what, let me back away from this for a while and actually start focusing, if they haven't already, on the price of eggs today, you know, what their kids are doing in school. And when you start to get these holidays rolling in and all this other stuff, you know, voters then actually start focusing on their lives. And the concern, if you're a Democrat, Joe Biden, is number one, you've got to talk about who you are and what you've done for the country, but also remind voters at what's at stake in this election, because the political televangelist that Trump is, he's going to continue to go on TV, going to continue to rally his support, going to continue to raise money off of this. And in a couple of weeks, mathematically, he will win the nomination just by the number of delegates that he'll have in his pocket. And so, you know, from that point of view, he will continue to sort of be the person that says, give me money. But if I'm a Republican voter, for example, or even a Republican leader in a state, what I'm wondering is, does this hurt my ability to elect the bottom of the ticket?
Yes. I don't think we talk about this nearly enough.
Because if you're Donald Trump and you're telling the Republican National Committee and every other committee associated with the Republican Party to raise money to help me defend myself, what money is left over for the rest of the ticket? All of those down ballot races. Now, I'm not trying to help anybody on that side of the aisle right now, but if just from a strategic point of view, a leader is going to come and say, well, wait a minute, look at how much he's a drag on our party, because financially we can't help anybody that's out there. And I wonder whether or not a Republican, but Democratic voters are keyed into this. And I think, you know, for them, they're going to support, you know, Joe Biden. I'm no problems with that. But if you're a Republican voter, you're wondering, how does this help my local congressman stay in office? How does this help my state senators stay in office? And somebody's got to wake up and say that he is a drag on the ticket, and we need to find a way to move forward.
Let's talk specifically, Lisa, about the immunity case, right? If the Supreme Court decides either the case can proceed and we're going to take up the question, or we don't want to take up the question, is there any other way for him to delay then?
Well, he still has a couple of motions to dismiss that are pending and have to be decided. She may have opinions in the can that she's been working on. He could also delay the case, saying he needs more time to review discovery. In the latest reply brief that he wrote to the Supreme Court, his first point wasn't about the stay being warranted or about the merits of his immunity appeal. It was all about how the way Jack Smith is behaving gives the appearance of partisan conduct, explaining there are 13 million pages of discovery that I have to review, and that's not fair to my defense to rush this to trial in less than 3 months from the time that the mandate is entered. I have news for you. That less than 3 months from the mandate is entered, that is equivalent to what you were talking about before, the amount of time that they had left on the time to trial clock when Judge Chutkan had to press the TO button, right? And so they are trying to relitigate how much time they get to prepare for trial, even though she has been steadfast in saying she thought 7 months was enough and that she will continue to make sure that they get the full benefit of those 7 months. Can I say one other thing?
Please.
Because we're talking about what we don't talk enough about politically. I think the thing we don't talk enough about legally is the accountability that is going to be gained through all of these civil cases, which is hurting Trump at the place that he cares about most, his brand, his business, his net worth. In some respects, he is less afraid of jail and a conviction and what even a conviction could mean for his political future than he is about his assets. And at the end of the day, the accountability that Tish James and E. Jean Carroll have already obtained, and I think will have those rulings upheld, that might be the ultimate form of accountability here, even though we're also fixated on the criminal trials as the ultimate or zenith metric of his accountability.
Well, and